Hey guys, this is IX with Rollout Reviews, bringing you another S.H.Figuarts review. This time with the Shinkochu Seiho Kuuga renewal on the horizon, I thought we'd take a look at the original Masked Rider Kuuga Mighty Form. So we'll set the figure off to the side really quick and take a look at the packaging. It's very simple, if not extremely boring, but that's just how Figuarts packaging used to be. Now this is my oldest S.H. Figuart. Came out in 2009, and first impressions, it looks pretty good, if not a bit off. Well, a lot off. It's very thin and lanky in proportion, but that's just how Figuarts used to be, much more stylized than they are nowadays. That said, let's take a look at all of this figure's details and everything else it has to offer. Kuuga's armor is done up in a metallic cherry red, and while it's not entirely accurate to what we see on screen, wow does it look nice. It just catches the light so well. The head sculpt is okay. It's a bit squished, and particularly the mouth plate doesn't seem quite right, but it's not bad. The crest is molded in a soft rubbery plastic, which is a little bit weird, definitely not something you'd see on a more recent Figuart. This guy was the pioneer of the compound eye effect, and while it's not perfected or polished here, it still looks nice. He does have this big seam line on the side of his helmet, and there's not a whole lot you can do about that. Something I really like about this guy's details are the grongi etchings on his armor, across the collar here, and on the bronze trim towards the bottom. Just very well done. Something I really don't like are the shoulder pads. They're just too rounded and bulbous. They look fine, but that's definitely not how it's supposed to be. Now on the black undersuit, there are a couple of details like folds and creases molded in to make it look a little bit more fabric-like, but it's not convincing anyone. Generally, the black undersuit pieces look slim and glossy and unfortunately toy-like. More cherry red on the forearms here, tiny little jewels picked out on the cuffs just like the one on his forehead. More of that on his ankles. Of course he has the knee pads there. Very plain legs, very thin looking. I'm not sure I like that. Now he has abs molded in here, and honestly they look a bit tacky. Fortunately you don't see them in most poses. Towards the back, he's got a very unfortunate tramp stamp. Oh well. Now, the belt is actually molded into the groin section here, so where the silver paint meets the black plastic, there is a tiny bit of overspray. It's not very noticeable, though. I do like the way the belt was done. It's got this lens here for the jewel that has a nice layered effect, and of course you have a couple of the buttons picked out in multicolors. More grongi letterings on the side. His feet are metal, and I appreciate the fact that they're matte here. A lot of times Figuarts have metal feet, and they're very glossy looking, and don't quite match with the rest of the figure. These match up pretty well, and they've even got some nice molded detail. Towards the bottom, the grongi marking on his sole is sort of reduced to a squiggle, but when you start complaining about details on the bottom of a figure's feet, I think you're going a bit too far. Overall, the proportions on this guy are way off, but there's still a lot to like here. For articulation, he's got a double ball joint in his neck, which has a great range. The shoulder pads are on hinges, but they're just a friction connection and tend to fall off from time to time, so be careful with that. The shoulders only go out about this far, which isn't very impressive. He does have a ball joint at the shoulders, so you can do stuff like this, and of course they can go forward and back. You have a rotation here, the elbow bends about yay far, and he's got the standard wrist joints with a hinge and a ball joint. Now the abdomen here only has a double ball joint. This was before you could sort of pull the waist out and the armor could collapse, so you had more of a crunch. There are certain things that I just wish I could do with this guy that I can't. out. Similarly, the hips don't have very much range either. They only go out about this far, forward about this far, and not really back at all. There is a rotation here, but it's fairly limited on that universal joint. The knee bends pretty crazy far, so at least you got that. The ankles rotate, they go forward and back. They've got a tilt that goes about that far, and you have the toe. So there's a lot you can do with this guy, but the engineering is definitely dated. There are one or two signature Kuuga poses that I just can't quite get him into because of the lack of movement in his hips and his torso. As for accessories, Kuuga doesn't have any tools or weaponry in Mighty form, so all you're left with is a plethora of replacement hands. You've got these ones, which are meant for his signature henshin pose, but are very versatile. They can be slightly open or calm hands, and you can use them for plenty of poses. You've also got standard fists. These slightly peculiar hands, which are somewhere in between calm and rage. I suppose you can also hold things with them. I don't use them very often. You've got full-on rage hands, which look pretty good. And you've got a single thumbs up. If I'm not messing with this guy on my desk, I usually have him in one of two poses up on the shelf. Either a good old rider kick, or giving his cop friend a hearty thumbs up. Despite its age, I think this figure actually holds up to the test of time astonishingly well. It's inaccurate to the on-screen suit design as all get out. That thing usually bothers me, but for one reason or another, I find myself pretty content with a lot of the liberties taken here. No, the crazy amount of detail and smart engineering that modern S.H.Figuarts have isn't here. But the paint finish, while simple, is extremely effective. The joints on mine are all perfect. Not too loose, not too tight. The plastic is solid and his metal feet keep him well supported in all kinds of poses. His lack of accessories doesn't make him feel incomplete. He's got just enough alternate hands to keep things interesting. Most importantly, this figure is absolutely fun to pose. Fun to play with. Through and through, he is an ideal desk toy. Something I think certain modern Figuarts tend to shy away from being, with their overwhelming complexity. I imagine with the new version coming out, plenty of collectors will be selling off this figure, and I don't blame them. It's certainly dated. That said, if you don't want to drop $50 or more on the renewal, and can find this figure used for a vastly cheaper price, I'd say go ahead and get it. You might find that this is a surprisingly satisfying representation of the character. So, that is about it, guys, and this is IXRoll@IX, signing off.